Welcome back to the channel. In the United States, in 1978, a body was pulled from the cold, rushing waters of the Mississippi River. At first glance, the man's death seemed like just another tragic drowning, one among many along the long stretch of that unforgiving river. But when police searched his pockets, they found something that turned an ordinary investigation into one of the most chilling mysteries ever recorded. Inside his soaked jacket pocket was a Polaroid photograph. In the image, he stood alive on the very same bridge from which his body had supposedly fallen. The photo was stamped with a date 3 days after his confirmed death. This story has haunted investigators, historians, and locals for decades. Tonight we go deeper than the surface. We'll peel back the official reports, sift through the whispers that never made it to newspapers, and wander into the shadows of time itself to uncover the truth about the man, the bridge, and the impossible. Photographed. It was a humid August morning in 1978 when two fishermen near St. Paul noticed something tangled in the reeds along the Mississippi's edge. At first, they thought it was driftwood, but as the current shifted, the pale outline of a human arm broke the surface. Authorities arrived quickly. The body was pulled from the water, swollen and discolored, but not unrecognizable. He was identified as James Michael L., a 32-year-old machinist who had been reported missing just 4 days earlier. His car was found parked near the High Bridge, a steel truss structure spanning the river, known for both its impressive view and its grim history of jumpers. At first, police assumed suicide. James had no known enemies, no debts, no criminal record. His life seemed stable, too stable, in fact. But when the coroner performed the autopsy, the story shifted. There was no evidence of self-inflicted harm. No broken bones, no defensive wounds, no head trauma. Instead, the cause of death was simple: drowning, but something strange lingered. The coroner noted in his report that the lungs contained more river water than expected, as if James had been held under deliberately. Then came the discovery in his pocket. Detective Harold Jennings was the one to remove the photo. It was water damaged but intact, the colors still vibrant in that washed out way only Polaroids had. The image froze James in time, standing on the railing of the High Bridge at dusk. His hands were on the metal guard, his expression unreadable, and in the bottom white margin of the photo was the date, stamped neatly by the camera itself, August 19th, 1978. The problem was clear. James's body had been pulled from the water on August 16th. Jennings initially thought it must be a mistake. Maybe the Polaroid camera's internal calendar was off. But when it was tested, the device stamped the correct date every time. Even Polaroid experts confirmed the timestamp could not be manipulated without destroying the image. This meant one of two things. Either James was somehow photographed alive 3 days after his confirmed death, or someone had engineered a cruel, impossible trick. Investigators dug deeper into James's life. Born in 1946, he grew up near Minneapolis. A quiet, serious man, James was described by neighbors as polite but distant. He worked long hours at a local machine shop, spent evenings alone in his modest apartment, and was known to take long solitary drives. One strange detail emerged. In the weeks before his disappearance, James had spoken to coworkers about time loops and seeing himself from the outside. He even told one colleague that he had stood on the High Bridge late one night and felt like someone was watching him. Someone who looked exactly like him. When coworkers laughed it off, James grew silent. Days later, he vanished. The High Bridge was more than a landmark. Locals whispered it was cursed. Since its construction in the late 1800s, dozens of people had leapt to their deaths from its span. But some reports claimed not all the deaths were suicides. Strange accidents occurred, cars stalling in the middle of the road, people claiming to see figures standing on the railings only to vanish when approached. One particular chilling story dated back to 1921, when a man named Thomas K was found floating beneath the bridge. In his pocket was a photograph to a black and white snapshot of himself, standing on the same bridge, taken weeks after his death. This detail, buried in old police archives, had almost been forgotten until James's case brought it back. The bridge itself, a kind of trap, a place where time folded in on itself, capturing moments that shouldn't exist. Detective Jennings became obsessed with the case. He interviewed James's family, friends, even past girlfriends. None had ever known James to own a Polaroid camera. Yet, in his apartment, investigators found a box of undeveloped Polaroid film. Some rolls were missing. Jennings started spending nights parked by the bridge, watching. In his notes later released under Freedom of Information requests, he wrote chilling lines. Saw figure standing at the east railing at 2:17 a.m., too dark to identify, but looked like him. Car stalled when I approached. When headlights returned, figure gone. The water doesn't sound right here, like it's carrying voices. By November of that year, Jennings was pulled from the case. His superiors called him unstable, saying he was seeing patterns where none existed. But unofficially, officers admitted privately that they avoided the bridge at night. In December 1978, 3 months after James's funeral, another photo surfaced. A local boy claimed to have found it tucked under a loose plank on the bridge itself. This image showed James again, but this time he was standing in the middle of the bridge, holding a Polaroid camera at chest height. The timestamp? September 22nd, 1978, more than a month after his burial. The negative space around James in the photo revealed something else. Blurry figures stood behind him, dozens of them, their faces indistinct, but all positioned along the railing as if watching him. Some later claimed the figures looked like people who had died on the bridge across the decades. When this second photograph reached the police, it was quietly sealed away. Only whispers remained. Over time, the story split into theories. Paranormal. Imprint. The bridge was said to record deaths, replaying them through photographs that manifested in impossible ways. Each victim carried a final snapshot of their fate. Time slip phenomenon. Some researchers believed the Mississippi at that bend carried unique electromagnetic properties. Combined with the seal of the bridge, it created distortions, moments, where time overlapped, allowing photographs to capture the future or the past. The doppelgänger theory. Others whispered that James had a double, someone who deliberately mimicked his life, took the photographs, and left them to confuse investigators. But no evidence of such a twin was ever found. The ritual theory, a darker possibility emerged. Some suggested the Polaroids were part of a ritual, each victim pulled into a cycle. The photographs weren't random, they were offerings, proofs of a contract between the dead and something unseen. By the early 1980s, the case was forgotten by most. The files were quietly marked unsolved. James's family moved away, never speaking of him again, but strange reports never ceased. In 1984, a jogger crossing the high bridge claimed to see a Polaroid lying on the ground, and it was a man she didn't recognize standing at the railing. That same man was found dead in the river 2 days later. Through the 1990s and 2000s, scattered stories emerged of Polaroids appearing near the bridge, always showing people before their deaths. Some photos dated days, even weeks into the future. Some showed people who were still alive at the time they were found. And yet, without fail, each image became reality. The bridge was finally closed in the early 2000s for repairs, but locals whispered it wasn't just for safety, it was to prevent more photographs from appearing. In 2007, long-retired Detective Harold Jennings died in his sleep. Among his belongings was a shoebox filled with notes on the case, along with a final Polaroid. The photograph showed the detective himself, standing on the high bridge, holding a small box under his arm. The timestamp read October 31st, 2007. The photo had been taken the day of his death. Today, the high bridge still spans the Mississippi, reconstructed, repainted, reinforced with new railings. But some say the air there is wrong thick, charged. Visitors claim their cameras glitch, photos blur, and sometimes, when the light fades, Polaroid film spits out blank white images that later develop into figures no one remembers taking. The story of James Michael L. remains one of the strangest. Unsolved mysteries tied to the river. Was he the victim of foul play? Or of something far stranger, something that bends time and memory, something that traps the living in photographs that outlive them? The Mississippi has always carried secrets, but perhaps the greatest secret of all is not what the water hides beneath its surface, but what it chooses to give back. The photograph in the pocket was never explained, the dates never reconciled, and yet, the image remains proof that sometimes death does not come when we expect it. Sometimes it arrives early. And sometimes it lingers in the frame, waiting to be seen. So next time you walk across a lonely bridge and you hear the river rushing beneath, remember, the water holds more than reflections. It holds echoes. And somewhere